So my second favorite thing to do, from an accounting perspective at least, is to create an invoice. An invoice is simply a request for payment. And the way you ask for payment is to prepare a document that has the details of why you think they should pay you. So what are those details? So these items are the basics that should be on an invoice. Your customer's name and their address, the date that you've prepared the invoice, some kind of invoice number, and that number's got to be different from any other invoice number you've created. So this might be invoice number 1, your name and address so that they know who to send the payment to, a description of what you're invoicing them for, the amount of that product or service, any sales taxes that are related to that, the total of the amount plus the taxes, the terms, in other words, how quickly do you want them to pay, net 30, for example, pay within 30 days. Some jurisdictions require that you have a sales tax ID or a business number, and then a nice message at the bottom is pretty standard, just saying thanks for the business. So we just finished some work for Mary's Flowers. Today is September 15th. It's our very first invoice. This is fantastic. We're Victoria Design. We've just finished 8 hours of design work for Mary's Flowers at $80 an hour is equal to $640. 5% tax on that is $32 for a total of $672. We expect them to pay within 30 days. Here's our tax ID number, and of course, a big thank you to Mary and her staff for inviting us to do this work. Terrific. So the invoice, for all its apparent simplicity, is actually a very hard-working document and has to do at least 4 things. So the first thing is pretty obvious. We simply need to send this invoice to the customer so that they receive it. The second thing we want to do is you want to keep track of exactly how much the customer owes us, and then we need to remind ourselves in a month or so if the customer hasn't paid us. And we do that by just making a little note over here. So I need to keep track of a little list of things that are owed to me. And this is called accounts receivable. Then what I have to do is I have to keep track of this sales tax amount because I'm going to have to pay that sometime in the next month. So here's a list called Owed by Me, and I got to put the tax amount over there. And that list is called Sales Tax Payable. And then because I need to know what my total sales are at the end of the year for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is my government reporting, I need to keep track of this $640, and I need to do that over here. Remember I said that if you're going to do accounting and bookkeeping, that you really should have some software to do this, because otherwise you're going to have to keep duplicates of invoices and find special places to keep the owed lists and the sales lists. Computer software just makes this all so much easier. And let me just give you a quick example. Here's the QuickBooks online invoicing screen that runs in a browser actually on any one of your computers. There's Mary's Flower Store. It'll save you typing up the address, and next time you send an invoice, automatically puts in today's date as the invoice date, calculates the due date, and then tracks that and reminds you if you haven't been paid at that particular time. It asks you to put in Mary's email address because it can actually send the invoice directly to Mary by email. Here's the description, the design services, 8 hours at $80 is equal to $640, does that calculation for you automatically, knows that there's tax, automatically calculates the tax, and then calculates the total. It also keeps track of everything in the accounts receivable, the sales tax payable, and the sales list, and we'll see that in a future lesson. But before we end this lesson, let's quickly add one more invoice to make things interesting. We'll send an invoice to Marcy Middleton at Frank's Hardware for some web development services and some annual web hosting. Note that QuickBooks knows that one of these is taxable and the other one is not taxable. Here's the total amount that will go to sales, here's the tax amount, and here's the total amount of the invoice that will be added to accounts receivable. All right, clean, simple, professional. Now you know all there is to know about how to create an invoice. Coming up in the next video is my favorite part of accounting.